Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Making Your Mark podcast. I'm your host, Mark Bundang. Today, we want to talk to a very special gentleman here. His name is Shah Chaudhry. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm honored to have you. I wanted to bring Shah on because he has a unique personal story, and it's tied to a career in cybersecurity. Not everyone thinks about it in that way. Not everyone thinks about it in the human way. But certainly, Shah has one of those stories that you need to know. There's a lot of wisdom in there. There's a lot of challenges that he's had to overcome. And I find it very, very interesting, and I think you will too. So, Shah, maybe you can tell a little bit about your background.
Absolutely, Mark. I started off at Senegal College, if I could remember, back in 2012. I was enrolled into a degree called Bachelor's of Informatics and Security, and I was referred to this program by my wife at that time. And she said that since you are such a nerd, this would be a great fit for you since you're always interested in computers, you're always gaming, you're always trying to build computers. I think this would be a great starting point for you rather than, you not knowing what to do. So I got into this program. This was a very good program. It was by Senegal Polytechnic. I had a great time. I had a lot to learn. It was a loaded degree. There were a lot of disciplines and there are a lot of domains that I had to learn. It was kind of like going through the CISSP exam over 4 years with added Linux and network penetration testing and blue teaming, red teaming. Sorry, these are all the security terms that I probably will go through later on. But this is how I initially started off. And as soon as I graduated from my program, um, for any cybersecurity person that is out there that's graduating from their programs, the most critical part of their life at that point is looking for a job. So, which is the hardest thing to find because you just came out of college, you're freshly graduated, and now the next job that you're applying for as an analyst is looking for 4 years of experience. So it's really hard to get in, to be honest with you. But I initially started my journey as a desktop support level one as a contractor. More on that later.
Great. You know what? And I think what I really like about that I heard is that a lot of, especially a lot of young people now who are graduating in 2024, they're entering the workforce. They're faced with that challenge too. Of trying to find. I've just gone through school. Where do I start? How do I get a job? And especially you hear today that there's a lot of people who or a lot of podcasts out there that they say it's so hard now in 2024 to get your first start. So certainly very relatable. I wanted to ask you. I know that you started off trying to get in through the door and stuff like that. Is there a particular experience or anything that you wanted to share first with the audience?
Yeah, as I was saying, since it is not easy getting into cybersecurity right off the start, as for somebody who is just graduating or who are just finishing their cybersecurity studies, you may have to take a detour. And one of the ways you can take a detour is you can go into a related field or a related domain within cybersecurity. For example, system administration, desktop support, networking. These are all parts of cybersecurity. These are all entry points. They're small entry points, but they are entry points. I took a detour by going around rather than for going from point A to B. I took a detour and I went around as a desktop support person, and I had to kind of gain the knowledge, on my time and on work, hands on, to be able to jump into a cybersecurity role in the future. So I was a desktop support person first, then I jumped to systems admin, then I jumped to a senior systems admin, then I jumped to a cloud architect, then I went to a technology specialist, then I went to cybersecurity analyst, then I went to cybersecurity lead. So this was my path.
Ah, Okay. Okay. Great. There's a lot to unpack there that I'm sure you'd want to get into. Maybe let's start with, you know what, you graduated, and you speak a little bit about how you kind of took a detour, before you got to where you wanted to go. What was it like going through that detour?
It was not easy because you have all this knowledge. You've been working with hardcore networking. You've been working with network penetration testing. You've been working with Linux. You've been working with programming, and all of a sudden you're put into a role that doesn't even cover 5 or 4% of everything that you're doing in IT. You're dealing with just ticketing systems. You're resolving issues with computers. You're having users turn their devices on and off just to get things to work. It's to be honest with you, it's a lot of work, but it's very basic work. But there's a lot of opportunity there. There's a lot of projects, that land into IT's lab here and there. Some of these projects are, setting up cloud services, migration to cloud, migration to another system, setting up new software, or introducing a new software into the company, building apps from scratch. So what you can do is you can always volunteer for some extra responsibility, and that kind of paves a path for you towards where you want to go. So that's exactly what happened with me. Desktop support, and then I got into more Microsoft centric like ecosystem. With Microsoft ecosystem came cloud, came MDM, came Azure Active Directory or Entra ID, which is now known as Entra ID. And I slowly started to get into these things. I slowly started to not only provide support, but I also volunteered in setting it up with my current system admins at that time. And they were very pleased with my performance. And I kind of learned really quickly because, again, the knowledge was fresh, the hunger, the thirst for knowledge was there. I wanted to grow. I wanted to get to where I want to be when I graduated from my program, and I wanted to kind of get the value out of my program because I didn't want to be stuck as a desktop support person. Not that, I'm not saying that it's a bad role. I'm saying that for what I have done, for the work that I have done, 4 years of cybersecurity work, I didn't want to be stuck in a junior level role that did not focus on cybersecurity. So I had to carve my way out of that path by enrolling into different projects, uh, kind of begging my managers on getting me to work with Azure Cloud, getting me to work with AWS, getting me to work with different technologies. And that's what kind of brought me into cybersecurity, slowly but surely.
And that's amazing. You know what, Shab? At least I'm going to tell you a little bit in my own experience, uh, and certainly not with the people I've been working with right now. But there are some. If you look at the media, if you look at podcasts, you look at what's out there in social media. Sometimes you see, well, I'm not paid to do that, or I'm not. You know what? That's going to take me beyond the 40 hours or the hours that we agreed to work on. And what I'm hearing from you is that, and correct me if I'm wrong. I think that the projects that you take, they're kind of out of the scope of what your traditional role was. There's a trade-off there, right? I mean, on the one hand, you get to accelerate your knowledge and your experience in the field towards your goal, but at the same time, I imagine that took a lot more extra hours than you thought. Is that true?
Mark, you hit it right on the head. It's definitely true. There's a lot of sacrifices involved. I lost a lot of time with my family, my personal time with my friends. I was solely focused on getting these projects up and running. I was working graveyard shifts with my manager, who I was getting mentored from, and he acted as a role model at that time. I was like, this guy, he has a family, he's working late, he's acquiring all this knowledge. Maybe I can do this at that time. So, so at that time I was not married, um, and I I was able to sacrifice some time. I think I was just lucky that I was at that age and I was not married. I didn't have much responsibility. So what I was able to do was I was able to take on more work than I would be able to take on now that I have 3 kids. And kind of excel at what I do, like really learn, just get it all the information in me. Again, I was addicted to learning at that time. I kind of had this attention disorder that every time a new project came, I'm like, oh my god, what is this new shiny project? I want to learn more about it. And I did spend a lot more hours after hours, even on the weekends actually, just getting those projects set up, completed, on time deliveries, under budget, under time. So there is a trade off, there is a sacrifice, but the reward is great.
What goes into that drive? I mean, certainly, you talk about some graveyard shifts, right? And I imagine there was more than one, and weekends and some evenings to kind of master your craft. If you could break down the components of your motivation, your drive, what proportion of that is learning versus, say, other things that you might have gone into your drive with?
Competition is one. So the IT field is highly competitive. Um, we have a lot of people in IT now than we had a couple of years back or 10 years back. Even in cybersecurity, people said that there's a huge gap in employment in cybersecurity. I don't think that's true. I mean, cybersecurity positions are getting filled as more programs and more degrees are coming out with more focus on cybersecurity. My biggest drive would be competition. That would be my first drive. The second drive would be influence. If you have good mentors, if you see your manager, he's going through a CCIE, you're like, my God, that is a tough certification. I wonder if I can do maybe a lower certification just to kind of match up with them. So again, kind of comes back to competition, but you also have mentorship, and there's a lot of influence at your workplace. Your manager, your colleagues, your coworkers, they're getting these new knowledge, certifications, or getting brand new knowledge. So you're like, okay, I want to get this too. This looks pretty cool. I can do this too. So competition was one, influence was a second one, and the third one is, sorry to be brutally honest, but it's monetary. So
Uh, Good.
right, and I mean, technically, we're all. I would say that everyone is moving towards achieving a financial goal and financial freedom. So because I know that cybersecurity pays really well, I was always in the race. That when do I get to this level in which maybe I can drive a Lamborghini one? So that was the last one. Look, that was not the main one. That was the last one. It was a very minor one, but we all have that inside us, right? We all want to be better. Like when you see a Lamborghini out on the road, do you not want to sit in there? So that's what I'm trying to get at. I'm not materialistic.
No, I understand that because I think it's a little unfair I think it's a little to vilify the goal of material wealth, because a lot of good comes from that. A lot of people derive a joy and like, finally, I got the Lambo, I got it,
Exactly.
you know.
I got my toy, right? That's the only good thing in my life.
Uh, Before we get into more of the cybersecurity story of yours, one thing I did want to tap on a little bit was you mentioned that, how do I put this? There's your side of it, like what you did in terms of the extra hours, in terms of the time you put in to master your craft projects and stuff like that. So there's the benefit from you, but what's the impact or of that on the people around you, the people that I guess if you're on the service industry, the clients that you serve?
I've always provided uh, the best of the service that I could to my clients. It's always been like that. Even when I was working in junior roles, I've always ensured that I kind of sympathize with the users when something was broken. Delivered projects on time. I made sure that when a project was implemented, everybody that was affected with the project had the proper documentation. They had proper knowledge. They had knowledge base to fall back on, and lastly, they had excellent support from myself and my team if they ever needed assistance for that project or the application.
So the clients would feel supported, they'd feel covered, like
Yes, definitely, definitely, 100%. I don't think in my career I've had an angry client. Uh, I don't
Wow.
think so. I have never met, and in fact, I've taken angry clients and I've turned them around. And what ended up happening was that they had me on speed dial. And it happens a lot in IT. Let me tell you this: that they only call their preferred technician and say, "Hey, Shah, listen, this is broken. I'm not gonna bother putting in the ticket. I'm calling you because I know you can get it fixed properly." We have that kind of attitude. We have the kind of mentality. But we gotta slowly bring it down to our standard. I get it. Mark, you're pissed. Your computer's broken, but between me and you, let's just submit a ticket next time, right? Just so I can kind of mark my work. So we gotta bring them. We gotta bring them towards a standard. But I have never had an angry client, and that's my challenge to everyone out there. I've never had an angry client, and even if I did, I turned them around. I'm not joking. I swear.
Oh, I believe you. I believe you. And the reason why I believe you is because I witnessed it firsthand.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. For those of you in the audience that I don't think we covered this earlier in the podcast, but Shaw and I used to work together in another company many years ago, and when he was starting out, right, in a not yet cybersecurity role. And one of the things that Shaw has a legacy of is service. And he's right. I've never seen anyone. I guess I'll elaborate a little bit. I've never seen anyone after working with Shaw that was left angry. They certainly came to him frustrated, but they never left frustrated. And that's something that I think is a key lesson, Shaw, that at least I'm pulling away from your story. It's that in your form, I guess it's in the IT capacity, cybersecurity capacity, but service to others, it comes back to you. Like this is a reason why we're still doing the podcast now after years of why we still work together now on a remote part-time basis. It's because I remember the Shaw that came through for me during the time when I needed it the most. And it wasn't just IT. It wasn't something that he knew. It was some first time experience, which I'm sure happened a lot during that time in your formative IT career, right, Shaw?
Thank you so much, man. We're in the service industry, so we have to be on our best behavior. We cannot be
Absolutely.
angry. Simple as that.
Absolutely. And I guess, I mean, after honing your skills, what was the first big, I guess, turn for you towards now I'm really making starting to make a mark in cybersecurity. Is there an origin story or anything that you wanted to get into?
To be honest with you, it's been a pretty slow ride, but I just landed the cybersecurity position at my current organization last year. Actually, August 8th was my first year anniversary at this place. And I also acquired a new certification. I think it was what, Certified Information Security Manager, CISM by Osaka. It's a really big feat for me. It's a really big achievement for me. And as of now, I think I made it. Like, I think I did it. But I don't know, maybe 2 years in the future when we do another one of these podcasts, if I'm at a higher level, I'll be like, okay, Mark, I think now I did it. So it's never really, it's kind of like a never ending cycle, right? So it's going to continue on. But I personally think that right now, I'm in a much better standing and I did it.
Well, that's I mean, how long did it take you actually? How long did it take you?
Well, since 2016, how many years is that? 8 years, 8, 9 years.
8 years, eh?
Well, I
I
started my
know.
education in 2012, so I mean, if you count from that time, quite some time actually.
Yeah, yeah. So there's another lesson in there because when you look at just the time, like some people will look at it as wow, you did it that quickly, or wow, you did it that long, or that seems like the right amount of time. For you looking at it, how do you look back at your time towards until you got that position?
I think just overall, I think I had a great time. I don't think I've had a position. I've never had the position that I never wanted to. I kind of always got what I wanted. Maybe I was lucky in this space. Uh, there was a lot of there were a lot of I wouldn't say there were no challenges. There were a lot of challenges during this time too. As I mentioned that I was working after hours, so that was a challenge. Even though I liked working, I was missing out a lot on it. The transition took a long time. Moving up took a long time, and every time I had to move up, I had to learn something new and I had to prove myself. And it's like climbing the Everest, right? Um, you're continuously, the higher that you're going, the harder that it's getting to breathe, the harder it's getting. You're getting tired, and it's kind of like the same thing with me right now. I'm kind of getting tired, to be honest with you, Mark. It's a big climb. Even right now, it's a big climb. But it has been very steady and it has been very easy. I wouldn't say that it has been really difficult. I think if I can do it, anybody can do it. But it's been slow and steady.
It's been slow and steady from your perspective. Okay. I think for a lot of us out there too, it's interesting because you need to look back at your journey sometimes and then kind of reflect on the milestones, you know. So is there a particular one? It doesn't have to be in time linear order or anything like that, but is there one that stands out where, yeah, I got to the next level. It wasn't where you are now, but I climbed the stair or the rung of the ladder that brought me back much closer. Is there a moment there that you have?
The moment was when I initially moved up from my very first role to my second role. And I know it's not a recent moment, but allow me to elaborate. It's so from getting from desktop support level one to a systems admin is a big jump.
Hmm.
But when I was working as a desktop support level one, I had acquired so much knowledge. I was involved with so many projects. I was getting good mentorship. I was getting a lot of guidance on how to do and what to do. I was documenting everything. And one of my pretty much all of my managers, if you were to ever talk to them, if you ask them what is one thing Shah is really good at, and they'll all say one thing, and that is documentation. So I have a lot of documentation. I have a lot of knowledge, that can be transferred over. Like if I was to give my notes to a person who's just starting off in the IT field, they'll be able to catch up in that one role within like 1 week. So the biggest transition that I had, the goal that you're talking about, Mark, here, is me jumping from a stop support level one to a systems admin role. And at that point, I was like, "Oh crap, what have I done? This is a pretty big responsibility." There was a lot going on. I was initially and originally like involved with every single thing that was going on infrastructure wise, and some parts networking and also cybersecurity at the same time, because a really good system admin needs to know their cybersecurity. So I was learning a lot. So this was a huge learning curve. It was a big jump. It was a big leap, and I think that would be my turning point.
And how long did it take from the start to get to that IT systems uh, management or administrator role?
It took me 1 year.
1 year. Okay, I thought it was like 4 or 5 years or something. Okay, good.
No, it took me 1 year. I told you, knowledge was fresh. I told you, I was hungry. I was thirsty for knowledge. I was always running behind my mentor, my manager, asking him for new projects. I was getting books. I was getting training platforms. I was begging my manager to get learning platforms for me. I can study Udemy, stuff like we have right now, like Stormwinds or LinkedIn. We had YouTube at that time. I was going through these things nonstop all the time in my free time at work, whenever I had time, lunch breaks, after hours. If I got in early, I was just going through these things. I have a pile of Microsoft books for like 10 different certifications that I go through regularly to reference the daily tasks that I complete. So
That's
it took
amazing.
me it took me 1 year.
That's amazing because you said it took like 8 years, right, from when you started. So that was the first year that
That was
you
the
were
first
you.
year. Then I've mostly worked as system admin or security admin, most of those roles, yes.
Okay, okay. And that's amazing because you know the 10,000 hour thing that I guess in recent times, Malcolm Gladwell made that famous in The Outliers. So it takes about 10,000 hours to master something. At least that's the general gist of it. And if you do the calculation, a roundabout way of doing that is very simple. Is there's 2,000 work hours in a year, so you'd have to do 2,000, which is 40 hours per week, 50 weeks of the year, and you do that for 5 years, and then you've mastered a skill. So I think I think for you, it sounds like a lot of that 10,000 hours was done like in that first year
within the job role initially.
with, within the job role. Okay.
Within the job role and the knowledge that I was getting at that time, the books that I was reading, the certification programs that I was doing, there was a lot of exposure to the education, that I wanted to get for my role, just to be good at my role.
Okay. And on the way to cybersecurity after that 1 year, how did you know what else to do to get to climb to that next rung of the ladder? I mean, you've reached a certain level after that first year in an administrative systems administrative role, but you're not a cybersecurity manager yet. How did you know what was the next step after that? How did you know what you needed to learn, what you needed to put time into?
It was pretty simple at that point. I was out of, I was not fully out of support, but I was mostly watching over systems. We were watching over Active Directory, we were watching over servers, file servers, and with those tasks, automatically came some of the security tasks, such as if you're setting up a file server and you're maintaining it, you're also maintaining access controls on the file server. Who has permission? Who doesn't have permission? When you're setting up Active Directory, setting up users, user onboardings, you're also making sure that the identity that you're setting up is secure. So, you're setting up MFA. If you're configuring a network on a computer or you're configuring a new network device, you have to set up, a VPN for clients that are working remotely or that are working offsite or working from home. So you're setting up VPN to protect them so they have a nice tunnel to the office and they can work securely. So a lot of the things that I was doing, cybersecurity was already a part of it. Because I was a systems admin, my responsibility was to implement systems. And setting up the systems, again, when you set up a system, you can't just set it up and leave it. You're not just going to set up build a house and not have any doors on it and just walk away from it. So you're going to have doors on it. You're going to have, doorbell cameras. You're going to have CCTV cameras. You're going to have sensors. You're going to have fire alarms, system, carbon monoxide system. So you're doing everything when you're building a system. You're making sure you're protecting it at the same time. So I'm using the analogy of some real estate, some houses, into my cybersecurity because it was a given that when I was setting up a system, I had to secure it. And even if I didn't know it at that or how to secure it, there was so much documentation how you can secure it. And I was doing that at the same time as I was building the system. I was securing it until the end. And that's what ended the project. Until the system was not secure, until the network was not secure, until the endpoint was not secured, my project was not done. My task was not completed.
Okay, so that's an interesting takeaway, because what I'm getting from that is that it's not complete until it's complete. I know that's a bit simplified, but it sounds like there's a bit of a drive, like, did I finish that? What other angle is there that I haven't covered yet? Is that something that you've walked into with every job, or is that something that you kind of learned somewhere? How did you acquire that kind of perspective?
Technology is ever changing. They have new versions of software that they release, right? They come with improved versions. And, while I was working, cybersecurity slowly started to take, a lot of priority in a lot of companies. So what software folks were doing, like if you were to, I don't know, move to cloud, if you were to acquire, an application like a SaaS or PaaS or IaaS application, what everyone was trying to do was they were all trying to secure it until the end. So they already had it secure, but they added kind of additional security methods to improve the security of the application. So we're secure and they're secure. There's also compliance and there's regulations that companies have to adhere by now. even before. So my part of the job was never done until these aspects were not completed. Or these parts of the job were not completed. So I couldn't really look at it as, oh, is there another angle that I have to look at to complete the project? I had already completed the project. The end goal was I've closed this project, I made the project. Now, how am I going to secure it? Right? And
Mm.
that's what marked the true end of the project for me. And because we're in IT, and because the more software we implement, the more we expand our identity, the user base, our attack surface also increases, right? So we have to protect that attack surface in the end. If we're having a lot of users on board, it's going to be hard to control all the users. If we have a lot of computers on board, it's going to be hard to control the computers. We have to consolidate all that. We have to centralize all that into the system. And then we have to barricade it, like setting up a warehouse and barricading it, like fences and CCTV cameras and just protecting it. So yeah, this is one way I looked at it when I was completing projects.
Okay, good, good. Thank you very much for that, Shah. Uh, I guess one thing as we kind of approach towards the end, I wanted to ask you before I ask you your great takeaway that you have, the overall takeaway that I ask all guests. I guess one other question I have left is, in the 8-year journey that you've had getting to where you are now, is there a human part of navigating your career to get there as well? I know you've done a lot of the security, a lot of the technical side of it, but what comes to play on the human side? What's a takeaway that you have that you could impart on other people?
You have to be adaptable. Um, you have to be. I mean, it's an understatement, and you've probably heard this a lot. But you just have to be nice. You have to be accepting. You have to work with everyone. You have to accept the way people are. I worked with people that were not exactly as nice as you, Mark. Right? So um,
That's kind.
I worked with those people. I worked with arrogant, rude people, and my approach has always been being humble, and that pushes you. That pushes you so far. You have no idea. When you're humble, when you're nice to people, when you're accepting, you don't have to necessarily accept the rude behavior. You can always tell people, "Sir, I don't like the way you're talking to me, so I'm going to close the phone." You just got to sympathize with people. Everyone's having a bad day. Everyone's going through something. My approach was always being nice. My approach was walking away from a conflict that was not in my control. It's about like kind of accepting people who they were for who they were. And I've met a lot of people that I thought I could not change, but I ended up changing, and now they're my best friends. Now they're my friends. They're my network. They're my contacts, and I regularly am in touch with them. And it's just being humble pushes you so far. It's unimaginable.
Wow, that's amazing, Shaw, because it's hard to like in the media that I'm seeing, or at least the TikToks and the YouTubes and the reels and the shorts and all of that. You get a lot of bravado. You get a lot of I'm going to do it this way, this way, this way, and you're going to like it, right? Because the result is going to be something fantastic. But it's painful. It's painful when someone approaches you that way. They don't. I mean, certainly for me personally, I love your approach. This is kind of why we're still working together after all this time. We've chosen to work together, right? We're not forced to, right? We're not in the same company
No.
necessarily, right? So that's why I keep coming back to you. So I certainly can appreciate the humility, that style of accomplishing your goals and getting through to people.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't know if that was kind of your overarching takeaway, but I will ask you this. So it's tradition in this podcast to kind of give, based on the experiences that you've shared today, is there an overarching piece of advice that you'd like to give to the audience?
Definitely, don't stop learning. Um, Learn as much as you can. You can be replaced very quickly.
Mm.
Your skills can be outdated very. If you're sorry, I'm talking about the field of IT and cybersecurity and networking, not any other fields. Speaking from my experience, if I'm not going to work for 1 week and I'm taking some PTO, after I come back to my work after 1 week, I feel like I'm just starting a new job. So it's very important to keep up with the ever evolving world of IT, cybersecurity, networking. It's always good to be on your tippy toes. It's always good to be ahead of the game, even if it means you sacrificing time to do a certification, to get some knowledge, to get some mentorship, to learn something new. You have to do it. If you want to be successful, if you want to say one day I did it, you have to be on top of the game. You have to learn. Learning will never stop if you are in this field, in the field of IT. And the longer you stay away from learning, the harder it's gonna hit you in the back, probably down the line sometime. But I would my advice to everyone at this point would be, if you're in IT and if you want to excel your career, don't stop learning. Learn as much as you can. Get that thirst, hunger back for knowledge, and just go all out. Just go crazy.
Wise words, my friend. Wise words. Thank you very much for sharing that. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark.
You know what, Shah? I want to express my gratitude for taking the time to share your story with the audience and with me. I've learned a lot, and I know we're friends, and I know we spend a bit of time together more often than not, and I'm still learning about you. And every time I do learn, it makes me appreciate you more. So thank you very much.
Oh, Mark, that's so nice of you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's my pleasure being on here today.
Great, great. So one last thing before we kind of close here is, if people are watching and there's this one person, or hopefully many, they say, you know what, I want to ask Shah something because his experience is something I can learn from. How do they reach you, Shah?
You can always reach me on LinkedIn. We can have the link in this cast. And I'll also provide my email address. You can always ping me. And I'll be more than happy to connect on LinkedIn. And I'll be more than happy to help with whatever your query is.
Thank you, Shah.
Thank you, Mark.
Have a good one. We'll see you soon.
Too.
Bye.
You take care. Bye.
Hey, thank you very much. If you made it this far to the end of the podcast, I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. You know, we're just starting out, so it would help if I could just ask one more thing of you. Please subscribe to this channel and share the podcast, share the episode on any platform you can. It would mean a lot to me, and it would help us a lot. Thank you.